Hello, Answers Now family and friends. Adam Dreyfus here, Chief Science Officer and co-founder of Answers Now. You can find out a little bit more about us at getanswersnow.com. We are back here for our semi-weekly, maybe a couple times a month, Parent Support University. We've gone through the evidence-based practices over the last several months here during the pandemic. You can still check out those at getanswersnow.com as we've gone through all of them. Today, we're starting kind of a new thing. So instead of covering the evidence-based practices, we're going to cover single topics. We're going to cover some of your questions. We're going to cover some of the things that have come up quite a bit in working with our clients. So the topic of today's podcast, YouTube video, not sure exactly, is what is behavior? Now, all of us are kind of behavior analysts, right? Like we all do this all the time. We do it with our kids, we do it with our significant others, we do it at work, we do it in traffic. Why is this guy doing that? Why is he slowing down? Why did she do that? And most of us are pretty good at it, right? Like because we're people also, and we have thoughts and fears and desires, and when we look at somebody and they're doing something, we can usually have a pretty good guess that this is why they're doing it. Maybe they're upset, maybe they're, we're pretty good at it. One of the reasons that brings people here to Answers Now is that they're dealing with behaviors that fall outside of that it's not so easy to come up with answers. One of the things that we hear quite a bit, people who come to us, is behavior came out of nowhere. And so I wanted to take one of these and sort of talk about how does a behavior analyst think? Because that's really what you're doing. That's what you're hiring. That's what you're calling for or texting when you seek help, is a different set of eyes. And behavior analysts, like any other profession, have a very specific way that they're taught to look at the world, whether, lawyers, doctors, engineers, same kind of thing. Behavior analysts are taught to evaluate behavior in a very specific way, and that's really what you're looking for. So I've heard it quite a few times, like, oh man, I just wish my child would respond to me the same way that they respond to you. And as a parent, I know that how tough that is, right? Like how that one hurts. Why does my kid do what this guy asks him to do, but doesn't do what I ask him to do? And I always say the same thing, right? It's non-medical. There's no shots. There's no pills. There's no brain scan that we can use to figure out what's going on here. It's all technique. And just like any kind of technique, it can be learned. So let's start with, what is behavior? It's always funny when you're doing one of these, you feel like you're talking to somebody, but nobody's responding. So from a behavior analyst standpoint, we try to take away sort of self-reporting stuff, what people think and what kind of people feel about their own actions sometimes, because it's usually not super accurate. So we think of behavior as what somebody does, right? In terms of the technical term is the movement of an organism through time and space. Key is movement, right? We're looking at behaviors, not what you think, not what you feel, but what you do. There's a term that comes out of psychology called cognitive dissonance. And that usually means when somebody's behavior doesn't match up with what they say. And the rule in that circumstance, anybody? Is you drop out what they say, right? If what they're doing and what they're saying is not matching, you just eliminate what they're saying, because what they're doing is telling you all that you need to know. It's a really good perspective to kind of have. They're like, well, they said this, but they did this. Then don't worry about what they said, because what they did is tells you all you need to know. So behavior is the movement of an organism through time and space. We're just concerned with what they do. Think of it in terms of your children. You want to see certain behaviors go up. I want to see them talk more. I want to see more social skills, and other behaviors you like to see go down. I don't want them to be aggressive. I don't want them to be self-injurious and hurt themselves. So there's always this kind of up and down. And usually a good behavior analyst will look at it like, all right, here's the skills or the behaviors that we don't want to see. And these are a result of them not having more skills over here, right? Like the behaviors we want to drive up. So usually what we can do is if we increase communication skills and social skills, we'll see a decrease in the skills that we don't want to see. But it's really specific to those behaviors. Why are those behaviors happening? So we spend, as you know, if you've been in this a while, we do an evaluation, right? Like we might use ABC data, or just asking the parent, like, when does this happen? What's going on with this? So that's the sort of core piece, is behavior is just a movement of organism through time and space, what they're doing. There's a little subset of behavior analysis called verbal behavior. That's what I'm specifically trained in. That has a definition that brings in a social aspect, which I like a lot. So the definition of verbal behavior is behavior that's controlled by somebody else, not controlled, but mediated by somebody else. So this is kind of an example. You are my audience on the other side of this, and you're somewhat controlling my behavior. I would not be sitting here talking into the camera doing what I'm doing if you weren't on the other end. Think of this like any social interaction. Would you keep talking if somebody didn't talk back to you? No. So there's that nice, and almost all of the behaviors that we're going to be dealing with that are challenging to you come in that kind of verbal behavior piece, right? Like it's not just your son or daughter who's behaving in kind of this way in a vacuum, which is kind of the first behavior definition, right? Like just behavior, movement of an organism through time and space. Like just what are they kind of doing? No, there's a dance, and every parent knows this, every caregiver knows this. There's very few behaviors that are not a result of this back and forth, and we'll get into that in some detail here. What is behavior? So to address that first part that we talked about, which is a parent will come to us or a caregiver and say, it just came out of nowhere. First, we like to kind of push that aside and say, no behavior comes out of nowhere. The term we use is behavior is lawful. That just means it's responding to the rules. It's not coming out of nowhere. The nice thing about that is that it gives you more influence over it, right? Like if behavior just kind of comes out of nowhere, there's nothing you can do. If it's completely unpredictable, there's nothing you can do. And it feeds into, I think, a parent's sense of hopelessness that I have no idea what to do here. And a good behavior analyst will shift that thinking a little bit and say, no, there's absolutely a reason this behavior is happening. And this reason is knowable. It might not be apparent to us right now, but we can figure it out. This is also, we focus on what we see and what we hear. So first thing, the behavior is lawful. The second one is what do we see and what do we hear? Not that behavior analysts discount everything else, but that's the main thing, like that we're interested in, is what are they actually doing? Not what are people's sort of thoughts and opinions about it, but what is it that you actually see and you actually hear? And that's where all of our kind of data collection comes in, is what are we seeing? What are we hearing? When is it happening? What frequency is it happening in? How intense is it happening? And the last one that I really want to kind of nail in is that all behavior is subject to change. A lot of times we come in and people have been dealing with the same behavior for a long time, and it feels really intractable and it feels really overwhelming. And the truth is behavior is changing constantly. One of the main ways that it can change is just maturation, right? Kids grow up. But what you don't want to see is the behaviors that you don't want to see getting worse, and the behaviors you do want to see going down. And that's really where a good behavior analyst can help you out a lot, is how do we switch things around a little bit. Just a quick reminder, I am Adam Dreyfus, the Chief Science Officer and co-founder of AnswersNow. We are a platform service that connects parents and caregivers directly to board-certified behavior analysts. We are taking insurance now, we take Medicaid, and we connect you just like this. So you can do teletherapy, telehealth for your sons and daughters. So check us out at getanswersnow.com. We're talking about what is behavior. So we know behavior happens for a reason. We know that we really want to focus on what we see and what we hear, and not worry about the other stuff, at least right out of the box, and that that all behaviors can change. So a behavior analyst will come in, look at that, say, all right, I'm not too worried about what is kind of our thoughts, our opinions around this. I just want to, what am I seeing? What am I hearing? What are the parents seeing? What are they hearing? And a good way of thinking about behavior is, I like to use the watering analogy, right? So behavior will increase if it's getting water, and it will decrease if it's not getting water. So we call the increase, for the most part, reinforcement, right? And that's why most behaviors happen, is they're working in a really reinforcing way. Doesn't necessarily mean positive, right? Because if you're here and you're listening to this, you probably have a bunch of behaviors you're like, there's nothing positive about what it is that my son or my daughter do. And it doesn't mean positive in that sense. It just means positive, like going up. So there's we're looking for the source of water. Now, most of the behaviors that we deal with when we're talking about what is behavior, whether they're good, bad, indifferent, whatever, like where there's no morality of kind of that, like behaviors just are what they are, they're happening because it's working. And that's the other sort of crucial component to it, is it might not look like it, but if somebody's doing something, it's working for them. And that can be anything. And how do you know it's working for them? Because they're doing it. So we got to figure out a way, like, where are they getting the water? Where's the water coming from? Usually it's us. So the two main sort of drivers of most of the behaviors that we see are attention or escape. So we're giving attention to the behavior, and we don't do it consciously, but it's hard not to, right? Like, so if you're a parent and your one sibling hits the other sibling, boom, you got to pay attention to that. But that can increase those behaviors, right? Because they want parental attention. Same thing with escape, right? Like they want the situation to end. They want out of here, so that they've only learned that if there's a certain kind of music on, or something's going on in the house, that if they tip something over, then it stops that. So they escape, right? They get out of the thing that they don't want to be in. So a good behavior analyst is always looking at that. Like, where's the water coming from? Where are they getting attention? Or what are they escaping from? Are the two huge questions that we usually ask right out of the box. The other two ways that it's less so is, do they just like doing it? And that's a very small segment of most of the behaviors that we deal with, are what we call the automatically reinforcing. They just like doing it. So they like the sound of hitting something, or they like the feel of it on their hand. But for the most part, attention and escape. So then we try to figure out, where's the water coming from? And so what we want to do is exactly like you would think with like a plant, right? If I want the plant to grow, I want to make sure I'm hitting, giving it water when I want it to grow. If I don't want that plant to grow, I want to turn that water off. Here's the big challenge, right? And this is where a lot of parents and caregivers can get themselves into trouble, is if you just try to turn the water off, they're going to find another way to get water. You have to find a way to give them water for that behavior, but a different way than the way they've been doing it. So slapping yourself in the face is a good example. They can slap their self in the face, and you think like, oh, there must be some reason that they like the feel or the sound of it, when it's just attention. They're just trying to get some attention. And there's been a ton of research on this, that even really intense self-injurious behaviors are the result of attention. These are kids who people don't pay much attention to, right? A lot of them don't talk. A lot of them don't have very many social skills. Doesn't mean they don't want to connect. Doesn't mean they don't want to have they just don't know how to do it. And they have discovered, it's not like they were thinking about it, but that the only way that they get attention is if they harm themselves. And so you'll usually start off with just a little bit, but then it goes up and up and up and up, as it's a very effective way of them getting attention. So these are some of the ways that behavior analysts kind of think, like, what is behavior? How is it happening? Basically, where is this behavior getting watered? How do I turn that water off and turn on water for a behavior that I want to see? So rather than slapping themselves in the face, they might raise their hand, they might make a sound, they might point to a device, all kinds of different things. I hope this has been a little bit useful. We're going to do quite a few of these as we unpack how behavior analysts kind of think, and how parents and caregivers can learn to think like this, because again, it's all technique. We get a lot of credit for just technique that we learned. I didn't know how to do this stuff before somebody taught me. I was very fortunate to come across some folks who knew what they were doing, taught me how to do it. Now I can help other people. So I want to thank you for your time. Feel free to shoot us questions for topics or things that you would like to know more about. Go to getanswersnow.com. I am Adam Dreyfus, the Chief Science Officer, and look forward to hearing from you. Thanks very much.